Hello everyone and welcome to my B&B Fan Club channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Liam, she muttered, her voice breaking. I can't. His brow wrinkled, his smile wavering but still present. What's wrong, Hope? I thought this was what we both wanted, she said, gazing into his warm hazel eyes that had always seen her, even when she felt invisible to the rest of the world. Since they were 16, Liam had been her anchor, sneaking out to see the stars by the lake and dreaming of a life beyond the small-town constraints of Willow Creek. They had planned everything: college, a modest house with a porch swing, and 2 or 3 children. But life, as Hope had discovered, had a nasty way of destroying dreams. I'm sorry, she whispered as tears streamed down her cheek. It's Carter's baby. The words hung in the air, sharp and cruel, like a dagger slashing through the thin thread that kept them together. Liam's face froze, the light in his eyes dimming as the gravity of her confession set in. He stood slowly, the gravel crunching beneath his boots, and took a step back, as if physical distance could keep him from feeling the anguish. Carter. His voice was barely a whisper, full with incredulity. Carter Grayson? Hope nodded, afraid to face his eyes. She looked at the ground, at the fallen leaves that would never return to the tree. She hoped she could take back the words, go back in time to when she hadn't betrayed the man she loved. But the truth was out, brutal and irreversible. Their narrative began 5 years ago, in the summer following high school graduation. Hope and Liam were an inseparable couple that everyone in Willow Creek envied. They were the perfect match, Hope with her flaming red hair and quick wit, and Liam with his calm strength and unshakable loyalty. They worked at the local diner during the day, saved every penny for the future, and dreamed under the stars at night. But dreams, no matter how brilliant, could not protect them from the harsh facts of life. Carter Grayson had always cast a shadow over their story. He was the town's prodigal son, charming and wild, with a smile that could defuse any situation. He had left Willow Creek after high school to pursue a music career in Nashville, but he returned that summer, older and more hardened by the experience. His band had disbanded, and his ambitions of glory were reduced to a few dingy bar performances. Nonetheless, he exuded the same easy charisma that had made him the heartthrob of the graduating class. Hope had not intended for anything to happen. She and Carter were just buddies in school. But when he arrived at the cafe one evening with his guitar draped over his shoulder and a narrative of sadness in his eyes, things changed. He was not the child she recalled. He was a man now, and his wounds made him appear both vulnerable and dangerous. They talked for hours that night, long after the diner had closed, telling one another of their unfulfilled goals. Liam had been working late at the car business, and Hope assured herself that it was merely a talk between 2 old friends. But one chat turned into 2, then 3. Carter began popping up more frequently, always when Liam was not present. He'd play her songs he'd written, his voice low and haunting, and she'd feel something stirring inside her, an unnameable need. It wasn't love, not in the way she felt for Liam. It was something more, something wild and transient, like a spark that burns too brightly to endure. They crossed a limit one night while drinking cheap wine and carrying silent regrets. It was a single moment of weakness, a mistake caused by loneliness and the pull of what might have been. Hope regretted it immediately, the guilt gnawing at her as she drove home in the early morning. She vowed herself it would never happen again, that she would bury it deep and safeguard her relationship with Liam. Promises, like dreams, are fragile. Weeks passed and Hope attempted to forget. She threw herself into her life with Liam, preparing their future with renewed zeal. They applied to colleges, discussed moving to the city, and even chose names for the dog they planned to adopt eventually. But the secret festered, a poison she couldn't shake. When she didn't get her period, she blamed it on stress and the uncertainty of their future. However, the test confirmed her biggest fear. She was pregnant. Deep down, she knew it wasn't Liam's. Carter had left town again, chasing another job, another dream. He didn't know, and Hope had no intention of informing him. She couldn't face the thought of him returning, ruining the life she was trying to keep together. But she couldn't keep lying to Liam, especially when he was preparing a future that she no longer felt entitled to enjoy. The proposal arrived on a beautiful autumn day that made Willow Creek feel like a painting. Liam had methodically planned it, leading her to their location near the oak tree, where he had etched their initials when they were 17. He spoke of their future with such assurance, his voice calm and full of love, that Hope wanted to believe she could say yes, erase the past, and live the life he envisioned. But the truth was a burden she could not bear any longer. "Carter's baby," Liam said, his voice lifeless. "How and when?" Hope's throat clenched. She wanted to convey to him that it wasn't about love, but rather a mistake, a moment of weakness. However, the words felt inadequate, like attempting to mend a sinking ship with paper. "It was one night," she finally admitted, her voice scarcely audible. "He was back in town and I'm not sure, Liam. I was lost, he was present, and it just occurred. I didn't mean for it to happen, I swear." Liam's hands tightened into fists, his knuckles white. "You didn't mean for this to happen? Hope, we've been together for 5 years. 5 years, and you give it all up for one night with him?" "It wasn't like that," she insisted, her voice increasing with desperation. "Love you, Liam. I have always adored you. It was a mistake, the biggest one of my life. I thought I could mend things and go on. But then I found out about the baby, and I couldn't lie to you any longer." He turned away, shoulders tight, and glanced out at the empty park. The quiet between them was deafening, heavy with the weight of all they had lost. Hope wanted to reach for him and bridge the gap that had developed between them, but she knew she had forfeited that right. "How long did you know?" he inquired, his tone dull. 3 weeks, she explained. "I wanted to tell you, but I wasn't sure how. I kept hoping that it would go away, or that I could make it right." He returned to her, his eyes flashing with pain. "Hopefully you're carrying another man's child. How do you get that right?" She flinched, the truth of his words hitting deeper than she expected. "I don't know," she muttered. "I know I can't marry you like this." "You deserve better than a lie," Liam said, laughing bitterly. "Better? I wanted you, Hope. I wanted us. I assumed you wanted it too." "I did," she responded, her voice shaking. "I do. But I damaged everything, and I can't expect you to live with that." He shook his head, his jaw tightening. "You should have told me. You should have told me as soon as it happened. Perhaps we could have worked it out. But you hid it from me, and now—" He waved blankly at the distance between us. "Now it's too late." Hope's tears streamed down, blinding her eyes. She wanted to protest and beg him to stay, but she knew he was correct. The trust they had created over the years had broken in a single moment, and no number of apologies could restore it. The next few days were a whirl of anguish and isolation. Liam left town without saying anything, staying with his cousin in the city. Hope learned from common acquaintances that he had got a job at a mechanic's shop to distract himself from his feelings of heartbreak. She longed to contact him and hear his voice, but whenever she picked up the phone, the weight of her guilt stopped her. Willow Creek, once a haven for memories, has become a prison of recollections. The cafe where she and Liam had worked together, the lake where they'd shared their first kiss, and the oak tree where he'd proposed, all held the ghost of what could have been. Hope's pregnancy became the news of the town, whispered in low tones at the grocery shop and the post office. She'd heard the rumors. She'd cheated on Liam, Carter was returning to claim her, and she'd given up a fine man for a quick sensation. The truth was more difficult, but she lacked the motivation to correct them. Carter returned shortly when he learned about the baby. He arrived at her door one wet evening, his guitar bag pouring water on the porch. "Is this true?" he asked, his voice low. Hope nodded, arms folded protectively over her stomach. "It's yours." He ran his hand through his damp hair, his face a mix of bewilderment and resignation. "I did not intend for this to happen, Hope. I had no idea." "I know," she responded. "Neither did I." They stood silently, the rain pattering on the roof. Carter volunteered to remain and help, but Hope could see it in his eyes that he wasn't prepared for this, for her, for a kid. He was still pursuing aspirations that did not entail starting a family in Willow Creek. She told him to leave, and he did so, promising to send money when he could. She did not expect to hear from him again. As time went, Hope's life became a succession of little methodical moves. She moved into a small apartment above the diner, unable to afford the house she and Liam had hoped to rent. She worked as many shifts as her pregnancy permitted, saving every cent for the baby. Despite their disappointment, her parents supported her and provided any assistance they could. But loneliness remained a regular companion, a reminder of the life she had lost. She thought about Liam every day. She wondered if he still despised her, if he had moved on, and if he could ever forgive her. She sent him letters she never mailed, pouring out her heart on pages she stashed away in a drawer. She told him about the baby's first kicks, the way the sunset looked over the lake, and how much she still loved him, even though she had lost the right to say so. When the baby was born, a girl with Carter's dark eyes and Hope's red hair, she named her Lily after the wildflowers that grew near the lake. Holding her daughter, Hope felt a love so strong that it nearly drowned out the pain. However, it could not fill the void left by Liam's absence. A year later, Hope was carrying Lily's stroller around the park when she noticed him. Liam stood behind the oak tree, his hands in his pockets, staring at the initials they had carved so long ago. He appeared older, with creases on his face that had not previously existed. Her heart wrenched at the sight of him, but she braced herself and approached. "Liam," she spoke softly. He turned, his eyes wide with surprise. For a minute they simply stared at each other, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. Then his gaze shifted to the stroller, to the young girl with dark eyes and red hair. "She's beautiful," he murmured, his voice full with emotion. "Thank you," Hope replied, her throat thick. "Her name is Lily." Liam nodded, his face inscrutable. "I heard you had her. I was unsure if I should return." "I'm glad you did," she responded really. "I've wanted to tell you. I'm sorry, Liam. For everything." He looked aside, his jaw clenching. "I'm sure you are. I've had a lot of time to ponder and I don't hate you, Hope. I never could. But it still hurts." "I understand," she muttered. "I do not expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I loved you. I still do." He looked into her eyes and for a brief moment, she saw the kid she had fallen in love with, the one who had promised her the stars. But then he turned away, and she realized that youngster was vanished, replaced by a man with scars she had helped make. "I loved you too," he finally said. "Perhaps I always will. But Hope I can't go back. Not now." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I understand." He stretched out, hesitated, then softly caressed Lily's small hand. "Take care of her," he instructed. "She's lucky to have you." With that, he turned and walked away, his silhouette shrinking against the October sky. Hope watched him leave, her heart hurting all over again, but she hugged her daughter and took a deep breath. She had made her decisions, and now she would live with them, for Lily's sake and her own. The leaves fell around her, a silent reminder that certain things once lost cannot be recovered. But as she pushed the stroller home, Hope sensed a glimmer of hope, not for the life she had lost, but for the one she could still create, one step at a time. Hope sat at the pier's edge, the sound of the ocean breaking beneath her. The wind braided her hair and carried salt into her eyes. It stung, or perhaps it was just her tears. The ring glimmered weakly in her quivering hand, the diamond catching the dying sunlight in bursts of warmth that taunted the icy agony within her. Liam stood behind her, frozen in shock, his breath quick and irregular, as if his heart couldn't decide whether to shatter or continue beating. He hadn't moved since she said the words neither of them could retract. "I'm sorry," she had said quietly, the words catching in her throat. "It's Carter's baby." And with that, everything they had built, the promises, the laughing, the plans that stretched like constellations into their imagined future, broke apart. Liam's mind was blank at first, then filled with every memory they had shared. The first time she smiled at him across the coffee shop counter 2 years ago, her laughter poured forth like sunlight. The car trips, the little disagreements about music, the late-night calls that turned into daybreak. He'd noticed she was hiding something lately, but he assumed it was fear of commitment perhaps. He had no idea the secret was so much deeper, and terribly irreversible. "Say something," Hope said softly, her voice breaking as she turned toward him. Her eyes were crimson, filled with shame and tiredness. She was smaller than he recalled, weak and lost. Liam's lips parted, but no sound emerged. He felt as though he were drowning on dry land. "Carter?" He eventually spoke, his voice barely audible. The name felt poisoned in his mouth. Hope nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. It was one night. I did not intend for that to happen. You were gone, and everything felt so uncertain and She paused, shaking her head furiously. I'm not attempting to excuse it. I just want you to know it was not love. It wasn't intended to happen. He looked at her for a long time. The silence lingered, heavy and uncomfortable. He wanted to scream, shatter something, and make sense of the madness raging inside his chest. Instead, he simply inquired, "Do you love him?" "No," she answered quickly, and for a moment he believed her. But that belief didn't make things better. "It is you, Liam. It has always been you. I swear it." "So why him?" The question came out harder than he had intended, but he couldn't stop it. "Why don't you talk to me? Why not trust me enough to tell me how you felt before this?" Hope buried her face with her hands and sobbed into them. "I assumed you'd leave me if you understood how devastated I was. I did not want to lose you." Liam chuckled, but it was hollow and cruel. "And now," he stated, "you did not just lose me, Hope. You've lost us." He moved away, but her hand reached out and grabbed his sleeve. "Please don't walk away," she begged. "I can't do this alone." He paused but did not look at her. "You made that choice," he stated gently. "You already decided to be alone when you went to him." She collapsed to her knees, the sound of her wailing drowned out by the wind. Days passed into weeks, yet time did not heal anything. Hope attempted to contact him by texts, phone calls, and messages, but received no response. She penned letters she never mailed, loaded with apologies, recollections, and the forlorn hope that one day he would forgive her. But forgiveness was not easy. Liam's heart was torn between love and betrayal, and every thought of her exacerbated the hurt. Carter, for his part, had no idea at first. He was a mutual friend, the type that had always remained on the outskirts of their circle, charming but reckless. The incident occurred the night after Hope and Liam had a disagreement, one of those useless disputes that felt like the end of the world. Carter had spotted her crying outside the bar, provided her comfort, and the situation escalated. They both regretted their error, but mistakes have effects that last long beyond apologies. Hope terrified when she found out she was pregnant. For days she couldn't breathe or eat. She considered terminating it and pretending it never happened, but something inside her, perhaps remorse or love, stopped her. She wanted to be honest. She owed it to Liam even if it meant destroying them. She had the ring in her pocket when she informed him that night. He had intended to propose at sunset, and she knew it. She could sense it in the way he looked at her that morning, the tense excitement he couldn't conceal. She wanted to be happy for him and them, but she couldn't let him live his life on lies. So she crushed both of their hearts before he could say the words that would have bonded them together forever. Weeks later, Hope stood outside Liam's apartment complex again. She'd practiced her words 1,000 times. The leaves on the street were turning orange, and the city hummed sweetly around her, unconcerned about her anguish. When Liam opened the door, he appeared thinner and older somehow. His eyes were tired and guarded. "Why are you here?" he asked. "I needed to see you," she explained. I wanted to tell you I'm keeping it." He nodded once, his expression blank. "I figured. I don't expect anything from you," she responded swiftly. "I just thought you should know." For a long time he did not respond. Then he murmured softly, "I'm still thinking about you. Every day. But I am unable to forgive what happened." "Not yet," she muttered. "I understand. I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not," he answered. "But I wish I didn't still love you." She broke down and stepped forward, her arms quivering as if reaching for him would prevent the inevitable. But when he moved back, she froze. "Please," she asked, "don't push me away." "I am not," he replied gently. "I'm just trying to survive this." After that, they only met each other on accident. Once at a grocery store, once at a friend's party. Each time the air between them was thick with unsaid words. Hope's tummy began to show, and Liam couldn't help but feel both angry and tender. She was still the woman he loved, albeit carrying another man's child. Carter ultimately found out, and he attempted to step up. He wanted to be a part of the baby's life and accept responsibility, But Hope couldn't bring herself to let him in. It was not hatred, it was nothingness. She couldn't look at him without recalling what she'd lost. Months have passed. Winter arrived, harsh and unforgiving. Hope was alone the day she went into labor. She had kept the due date hidden from everyone since she was too embarrassed to seek assistance. The caregivers at the hospital were compassionate, speaking softly while she wailed through the pain. When she finally touched her baby girl, little, pink, and perfect, the tears flowed in a confusing mix of sadness and wonder. She named her Grace because that was the only thing she still believed in.